Recently, a friend made a comment to me about how effortlessly I do everything. And first, I've got to acknowledge he meant nothing by it. He was making very supportive comments about me and my success, but I've been reflecting a lot on that word effortlessly being used to describe how I accomplish things because it's the farthest thing from the truth. I feel like most days, even today, even though I'm doing really great in many aspects of my life, I still feel like I'm at war with myself, like this constant battle between repeating old patterns that are going to keep me stuck and engaging in new habits and behaviors that will keep me moving toward the life I desire and deserve. And it's a constant battle. And no matter, how far I get away from, in time and, just thinking away from my traumas, there's always going to be things that may bring me back and cause me to either slip into or want to slip into old patterns of thinking and behaving. And so, but the issue is, and why I've been reflecting on this a lot, lately, is because it's been a regular issue I've had in my life. He's not the only person that's ever made a comment about how, everything seems so easy for me. I used to get that a lot when I was traveling around the world and I started teaching on the college level at a young age. People thought I, was just given all sorts of gifts in my life. And yes, I do feel that I've been highly blessed in my life. But the issue is that most people think that I didn't have to work my tail off for everything I've gotten, but I have had to work my tail off. And part of the issue is how I present myself to the world. People always see a smile on my face. It's very unusual that I would allow the world to see, this version of Stephanie that's sad and depressed and having a difficult time, because I usually just don't allow the world to see that version of me. And part of that is because I retreat from the world when I'm in those moments. It's a major issue that my friends and family have, is that I don't reach out regularly when I'm in those moments where I'm sinking into depression, or my anxiety is really causing me to feel very overwhelmed. I have gotten better at reaching out to my mom and my sister Nicole during these times, but still I'm very guarded. And of course, the last thing I'm going to do is go on social media when I want to retreat from the world and say, I'm down and I feel like I'm, retreating backward. And it's the last thing I'm going to do is to go on and tell the world that. And that's part of the issue with social media in general, is that we only show the highlight reels of our life. But even before the days of social media, people had this interpretation of me. And that's why when people started learning, when I started telling the world that I had been sexually violated by 8 men between the ages of 9 and 19, most people were flabbergasted. They had no idea. I mean, I actually had some people ask me if I was lying, because they didn't believe that that could be true, because here I am in many ways doing great in my life. And some of these people who knew me back when my traumas were at their worst, particularly my teenage years, they still saw that I almost always had a smile on my face. And it's just how I've chosen to present myself to the world. And so before I continue, I'd like to, so in my first book, Transformation After Trauma, you see, it's got all my little tabs for my readings I do. I reflected on this in my first book. And so before I continue, I want to read a short section from this book. So this book is mainly about the self-care tools I used in my healing journey. And all, my books are part memoir, part how-to. So I talk about the tools, how I use them, but also tell people how they can use them in their own life. And so in this section of the book, I'm talking about how I used creative expression, and particularly drawing, to help me work through some painful periods in my life. And so the section I want to read from, I'm talking about some drawings I did, and I'm talking about how I was just listening to this book. So let me just read the section, and you'll see what I mean. So in this drawing I did, it was a drawing that is how I portray myself to the world. And it has big, bright eyes, a big smile. And I say in the book, I say, this is the face I portray to the world, happy and bubbly with bright eyes and a big smile. Not long after I went to this workshop, so it was at a workshop with Dr. James Gordon, a workshop he was doing on trauma, and I was doing this workshop, this drawing exercise at one of his workshops. And so I say, not long after I went to this workshop, I listened to the book Essence of the Upanishads by Eknath Easwaran. Hearing how we focus so much on the external appearance of ourselves and others hit close to home and made me think back to this first drawing, the one where I have bright eyes and a big smile. The same day I was listening to this book and thinking about this drawing, I saw a young woman at work dressed in a flashy, shimmering gold-colored blouse with matching shoes. I was mesmerized by the shine, but I couldn't help but think, what is she trying to prevent people from seeing on the inside? I've always enjoyed wearing flashy clothes. As I reflected on the book and my own life, I realized that by trying to captivate people with my shiny appearance and bubbly personality, they'll be too distracted to see my insecurities, imperfections, negative thoughts, and how much I'm hurting inside. It's the same reason I've always approached the world with a cheerful smile, even when I felt like I was dying inside. One day, while chatting with a colleague, I confessed that I struggled with anxiety and depression. He looked at me stunned. He said, "Really? You? I never would have guessed that. You always look so happy and chipper, and you've accomplished so much." Like most people who only know the person I am today, he had no idea of the multiple traumas I experienced in my life and the number of times I contemplated suicide. People who are just getting to know me don't see my past. They don't know about the sleepless nights I still have from time to time as I play reruns in my mind of my most difficult life experiences. Most of us hide our pain with smiles. We say we're doing well because we know deep down most people don't want to hear the truth. People are often shocked by what I'm willing to share about my past. But it's important to know, especially in the days of social media, where people only show the highlight reels of their life, that we all have a hidden story. We must start giving people permission to speak their truth. And I think that permission comes not only in reference to other people, but ourselves. We've got to give other people permission to say when they're not okay, but we've got to give ourselves permission to say that we're not okay. And I think it's a very fine line between, hiding our pain with a smile so we can just get through another day. And really, sorry, I'm not articulating this well, but let's be real, okay? Most people don't want to know when we're not doing well, okay? Because the reality is we're all struggling with something, okay? If it wasn't trauma from our past, then it's just life bearing down on us right now. I mean, because life brings so much to bear on them. It's so much stress. You know, there's financial stress and relationship stress and health stress and just stresses upon stress can be found in our life. And so most of us are just struggling just to survive every day. So, you know, most people, they quite frankly don't want to hear when we're suffering because they're just trying to figure out how to deal with their own suffering and they have no idea how they can shoulder ours on top of theirs. And so part of the reason I think most of us, you know, hide our pain with a smile is because that's what society wants us to do. You know, suck it up, buttercup, just keep on going. And that's what we're told to do. But there are times that we need to be vulnerable and we need to say we're struggling. And yeah, maybe we don't need to go and dump on a stranger. You know, if a stranger walks by us and says, hey, how are you doing? Or a colleague, random colleague at work says, oh, how are you doing today? I don't believe that you need to stop and give the person your whole life story and tell them about all the devastation you're experiencing. Okay, so let me be clear about that, as I think, you know, society tells us in many ways. You do the greeting, hey, how are you? Doing fine, doing great, and then you keep on trucking. And that's what most people want us to do. But there are people in our life, and if you don't have them, you want to find them because they're very important to have, are people that really want to know when we're not okay because they actually really love us and they don't want us. They want us to be real with them and vulnerable with them because if we hide our pain from them, we are also telling them that we don't want to know their pain. Because why would we hide our pain from them and be okay with them sharing their pain with us? I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And so if we are not willing to be vulnerable with those that we love, they're not going to be as willing to be vulnerable with us. And I found this true in my own life. And in this book, I talk about the importance of community and how for much of my life I retreated from the world in many aspects. And even though I do have a bright, bubbly personality and I love to get to know people, I've always kept people at a distance. I only allow them so close. And but in the last few years, I've been really working on improving my relationships with those people that have proven that that they truly care about me and that they're going to be there for me no matter what. And something interesting happened when I started to be more vulnerable with them. They started to be more vulnerable with me. And I got to see in real time that people are not going to be more vulnerable with you than you are with them. You know, it's tit for tat. Once you start being more vulnerable, they're going to give a bit more of themselves to you. And of course, when we give a piece of ourselves away, we open ourselves to being hurt. But how can we have deeply loving relationships without vulnerability? And that's the issue, particularly when our trauma has occurred by other people. When our trauma occurs by the hands and words and action or inaction of other people, we naturally want to be guarded, guard ourselves from getting hurt by other people again. But when you put up a wall, that same wall that keeps out pain also keeps out love and affection. And I'm telling you, love is just, one of the best antidotes to emotional pain. And it's hard because, again, love can cause pain, but love can also heal pain. And so I guess as I reflect on the ways that I've used a smile to hide my pain and how my smile has given the world the misunderstanding about the past and present suffering I've endured or continue to endure. I'd like you to think about some things like, I'd like you to think like, when are times when you can take off that smile and tell just someone in your world that actually I'm not okay. Actually, I'm not. When somebody asks you, how are you doing? And you actually try to say, actually, I'm barely surviving. I'm having a rough time. And really being okay with being honest. And again, that takes a tremendous amount of vulnerability. And so maybe if that scares you to death with telling anyone in the world that you're not okay, even with somebody that cares about you, maybe you've got to start with yourself and just saying to yourself, like, I'm having a rough day, and being able to acknowledge to yourself, because, we do so much to avoid thinking about that pain. We busy ourselves with work and tasks, so we don't need to sit and be still with our thoughts. We eat, we drink, we scroll through social media, we watch TV, all in an effort to not be with these thoughts when we're not okay. And I think it's important to be able to acknowledge when we're not okay. And because the only way, you can't ignore it forever, because the fact that you're not okay is going to show up in your life, whether you choose to vocalize it or not. And so by facing it head on and saying, yeah, I'm having a hard day, and really acknowledge how it's playing itself out, the fact that you want to overeat, the fact that you want to hurt yourself in some way, whatever it is, acknowledging that. And then as you're able to acknowledge to yourself that you're not okay, then you can begin acknowledging it to people in your close circle and saying, I'm struggling, and I need to let it out. I need to talk about it, and give people the opportunity to ask you, what can I do for you? And you to actually think, like, what is it? And sometimes it may just be that you needed to vocalize it. You needed to see empathy and compassion, and that's okay. But the other thing I'd like you to take into consideration is how we're not the only ones who hide our pain with a smile. Like I said before, we're all carrying immense burdens, if not from trauma, just from life's daily stressors. And so most of us are walking around hiding our pain with a smile. And so I'd like you to always remember that we're all doing the very best we can in every moment with the knowledge and resources we have at the time. And so the person on the phone, or the person, blaring their horn at you on a busy highway, and, all the people who show you, unkind, they're being unkind. People can be very unkind in many ways, and just try to remember that we're just doing the best we can. And some of these people that are short with you and ill-tempered, they're barely surviving themselves. And just remembering that we're just all trying to figure out how to muddle through life some days. And yeah, some days are super hard. But what I will tell you is hard days never last, and they never ever do. Excuse me. Everything in life is cyclical. That's why day always follows night, and spring always follows winter. And so if you are experiencing your own emotional winter, and you're barely surviving, and you're doing your best to muster a smile for the world, just remember that, life will always be this hard. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities for you to express a genuine smile, not one that's just pretend. So I encourage you to keep hanging on and holding out for all the moments in your life to come that will provide you the opportunity to have a genuine smile. So I wish you well on your journey. Thanks for listening.